Morning, everyone. This is Katie calling from Premier Marketing. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. I am so excited to have this opportunity with Nationwide. I have Alyssa and Charlene, who are sales representatives of Nationwide, offering to provide us with some training today. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce Charlene.
Great. Thank you, Katie. I appreciate that. And thank you all for joining us today. I know we're doing a quick session here, but feel free to type in your questions as they come up, and we'll be happy to get to those. Today, we're just going to spend a few minutes going over the Nationwide CareMatters II contract. Again, we appreciate you taking a few minutes here. We'll be brief this morning, just giving you a broad overview. And I know Katie's got us outlined for a couple more follow-ups to dig a little deeper in the next couple weeks. Couple disclosures, we'll just roll through those. We'll talk a little bit about the CareMatters contract and some of the options that are in that policy, and then we'll discuss, some ways. Everybody's always like, how do we pay for this? So we'll look at some different funding opportunities that we have. Many of you are probably familiar with these numbers. Less than 10% of the population own an LTC, and we know it's a hot topic. It has been for several years now with all the baby boomers in the world that we are dealing with and working with as clients. But why is that number so low, and why? That's just a huge opportunity for all of us. So we want to make sure that we're comfortable having that conversation and we can position the product when it's needed. When we really look, if you do a group presentation, when we used to be able to be face-to-face with folks, and I would ask the question, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of long-term care? 90% of the room is going to answer you what? Nursing home. Well, nobody sees that as their future. Nobody wants to talk about it. So pretty much they're turned off then at that particular juncture. It's not going to happen to me, that 70% statistic. I'm going to be the 30% that never needs care. So why do I want to bother? And I can tell you, I put myself in that mix because I have a mother in a nursing home with dementia, and I swear to you, that's not going to happen to me. So I'm in that 30% mindset. But,
hey, Charlene.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Charlene. I'm getting messages that we have that says we can't hear you over the hold music. So
I heard that a few minutes ago, and it just went off. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I think it's gone now. I just wanted to make sure. So if anyone cannot hear us, can you let us just shoot me a message on the chat? I do apologize for this. I'm just want to make sure that everybody can hear.
You bet. I heard it went away here on this end, but maybe not on everybody.
Okay. All right. It looks like people can hear you. I'm sorry. Go. Continue.
Nope.
I apologize.
Nope, that's perfect. Like I said, I stopped for the commercial, but I thought it went away, so I apologize for that. But so again, we just really need to have the conversation on, what long-term care is, what it might look like for your client, and why it's important to talk about planning. It's interesting. I was at a meeting. This goes back probably a year or so, and the presenter, really was just discussing the importance of having a plan. And really that's what we do, right? We talk about the plan. For most folks, insurance is definitely going to be an option, but for some people, it's not. Either they're not going to be insurable, or they want to self-insure, which is a whole nother call we can have. But this particular couple, at the end of the presenter's presentation, his name was Brian, they were talking about having the plan. He was walking around the room answering questions. And this couple was just like, well, we have a plan in place, was what the husband said. And the wife said, oh, really? What's that plan? And he said, well, we'll sell the lake house. And the wife did about a 360, and they started getting into a heated argument. And the husband looked at Brian and said, I bet you're happy. So the presenter, of course, never has the desire to upset his audience. And he said, no, but this is why we discuss having a plan. Because we need to know what it is, whether it's an insurance need, whether you're going to sell your favorite stock first, whether it's the lake house. We just need to have that plan in place. So it's just important that we have that conversation and we get clients thinking about what that might look like in the future. So I just always love that story. Again, we talked about statistics don't work. If you heard me a minute ago, I have a mother in a nursing home, and I can assure you that that's not going to happen to me. I'm just 100% certain that that's not a hereditary disease, that I had a different lifestyle than my mom did, and I'm not going to be there. but I still need to consider planning, right? Because what are the consequences if I don't put something in place? How am I going to pay for that? What's going to happen to my children? Are they going to be in the same area to help me? And do I want them to provide that kind of care for me? Or do I want them just to be there to be with me? And I would choose the latter and let somebody else, skilled professional, take care of me when and if that time does arise. So enough about positioning and having that conversation. I just encourage you guys to have that conversation. It's important, no matter what the outcome is on their decision, but it's important to position it with your clients and make sure we have that conversation. So now a little bit deeper into the nationwide CareMatters policy and why we really are proud of what we've come up with in this market space. Nationwide has a very strong history in the LTC space. We've been, our long-term care rider has been on our life insurance policies since 98, 99, and Alyssa can probably correct me on that.
You got it right, Charlie.
Awesome. I've been paying attention to you, right? So we do have a long history in this. One of the things that we're extremely proud of on our CareMatters contract is this is an indemnity, not only indemnity, but it's a cash indemnity. So what does that mean? That means that once your client is diagnosed as being 2 of 6 dependent, so they need help maybe transferring or getting dressed, they will be able to receive care in the manner that they want to receive care. So they can have it in their house. They can have it, if there's a niece that lives next door and that niece wants to take care of them. If they live out in the country, a lot of times folks have family members that live together on a piece of land. They can have their family members. So the cash is king, as we like to think. We added some new payment options, so we have flexibility. Typically, the hybrid contracts were always the single premium, and those are great. They still work. It's a good positioning story, but there are other options and other clients that we weren't able to reach because not everybody has or wants to release, especially in the market today, right? $100,000 or $150,000 to pay for a long-term care solution. So we have options for the single pay, the 5 pay, the 10 pay, pay to 65, and the latest option we added last year was the pay to 100. And that just opens up a broader market of clients that you can talk to about long-term care funding. So although it would be more expensive than your traditional, it does appeal to some folks in that range because I can pay to 100. I have the death benefit should I never need it, and the premiums are guaranteed. So we do find it competing in that space as well. We had only a 3% simple inflation and a 5%. We now have 3% compound. And so that's obviously where about 90% of the sales across the board, not just to Nationwide, occur. We have different refund of premium options depending on what your client's comfort level is with that. I will tell you most folks take the lowest refund of premium and the highest long-term care option. And then on our illustration, we have separately identifiable premiums. And what does that mean? Well, that means if you have clients, individuals, or especially business owners that can deduct that it's easy to do that. And that's a big deal because obviously this is a life insurance plan as its core. And typically we can't deduct the life insurance premium. So when it was all rolled together, there was no way to use this to deduct for long-term care. But now we do separate that, and you'll see that in the illustrations that Katie provides to you, and you can use that to deduct those long-term care portions. So here's the CareMatters in action, and this assumes a single premium of $100,000. We have several different options as far as how you can structure your policy. The average one out there everybody buys is the 6-year benefit. We do have a 5 and a 7, and I will tell you they're both very, very competitive. I'm looking at taking an application on myself here shortly on the 7-year benefit, and the cost to get that 7-year versus the benefit pool that I will get is actually really minor. So it's a good option to look at for folks that are used to looking at just the 6-year benefit. But you'll go into your 2-year pool and you'll accelerate that for long-term care. Once that is accelerated, you jump into the extension of benefits area. And then you would then jump into that would be your whole 6-year plan and your total benefit. So you can see in this case for our 100,000, we leveraged out almost 600,000 of long-term care. And oh, by the way, if we use all of that, we still get a 20% residual death benefit. and that is the highest in the industry. So we're very proud of that on our contract as well. And I guess, Katie, you want to interrupt me along the way, or you want to wait till the end? Either way is fine with me. One of the other
far,
areas,
we're good. We've just been having some questions on the presentation.
Okay, perfect. The other thing that we added when we rolled out this new contract, CareMatters II, last year was the 90-day retroactive elimination period. So what that means is instead of just waiting your 90 days and then in that fourth month you start receiving your benefits, in this case the 8216, you would actually in that fourth month receive your fourth month benefit with the payback of those 90 days that you were waiting. So you would get 4 months premium, 4 month LTC benefits, I should say, in that fourth month. So that's really nice because certainly they're out of pocket for those first 90 days, but at the end of that, they're going to get all their money back. And this is just a slideshow that shows the extra premium modes that I mentioned. So the one time, the 5, 10, and then there's your ages. So up to age 54, I can pay to 65, and up to age 65, I can pay to 100. Just a really flexible contract. We really think that it appeals to a much broader market. You can see the issue age is there down to 30. We are changing that issue age to 70. So we made some adjustments post-COVID on the issue ages, but we still will issue to age 70 in this policy. And 30 years old, I can't tell you we have a ton of those, but I would actually tell you that we are seeing more in the late 30s, early 40s. So some of your higher income earning families or folks that have been through a claim. So somebody in my situation, I have a brother still in his 40s. He's absolutely looking at long-term care solutions because he's seen what's happened with my mom. So he would be one of the younger folks looking into that particular contract, and probably a pay to 65 or a pay to 100 for somebody in that age group makes it affordable. Again, if I don't use it, I'm going to get the death benefit back. Well, I won't because I won't be here for the death benefit, but my family and my portfolio receives that infusion of cash upon death. So I mentioned the inflation option. So we have the 3% simple and compound. We have a 5%, which really does show well. I would probably say, and Alyssa, you can correct me or jump in here if you want, but I think in the male area, that 5% compound on a short, some of my counterparts will call it short and fat. So maybe I wanted just a 3-year benefit because, all the guys say this isn't going to happen. If it does, my average is 2 to 3 years. So that 5% on a 3-year benefit or a 4-year benefit looks really compelling.
Exactly. We'll see a lot of individuals that if you are having a hard time that they don't think they're going to have a long-term care event, this is just a nice way to look at it and say, hey, we don't necessarily have to plan for this long-term care event. We can do something that's what we would call short and fat and get a smaller amount, 3 years. Average claims of roughly about 4, maybe a little bit less for males in that case, and then put that 5% compound to really beef up that monthly benefit. Remember, it's cash indemnity, so you can use it however you want, or you can save it and bank it if for some reason the event went longer than anticipated. Then anything that you didn't use, you're able to draw back from your savings account or a portfolio if it was being reinvested. So a lot of individuals, I would say probably a lot of males that we may work with may like that a little bit better, especially if they're not really wanting to plan for long-term care. That might be something that's a little bit more attractive because of their return rate.
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate that. And then we have the other option with the medical care, and Katie's well versed on that. We won't get too much into that really because that can be a whole nother presentation. But basically, it follows the CPI index for medical care, and it is maintained by the U.S. Bureau of Statistics. So there's some long history on that inflation option, but that is definitely a new thing that we added last year into the policy. And the refund of premium options I mentioned briefly. Again, Katie's well versed on these. Typically what we're going to see is this very last one, the minimum refund. Most people are buying this for long-term care. It certainly feels good if I can get some of my money back. Some people will tell you they want all their money back. We have that option as well. But I would even lean toward the 90-95% of our sales, if not close to higher number than that, are coming in with that maximum LTC benefit. And I mentioned earlier the 90-day retroactive elimination period. This is really huge. Again, you get back those 90 days that you were waiting for in their calendar days, and you get that back once you start receiving your benefits. So that is nice to add back. And as Alyssa mentioned, it's, again, cash indemnity. So I think it's important to remember that money comes in and maybe you funded those 90 days and you're good and you can just stick that extra cash in your savings account. Or maybe you find that, boy, we really need to expand the bathroom, make it a little bit wider. Maybe somebody's in a wheelchair. You can use those dollars to do anything that you want. So that can be, adding ramps and adding grab bars and paying for someone to modify the home. That's just important, I think, to remember that it's yours to do what you want to do with it. My mom's actually on a cash contract on claim, and I tell you, my dad at 83 years old is happy that she is, and I am too, because I don't have to worry about helping him with those bills and how he collects that every month. So. And then just real briefly, I think it's always nice to see, we think about where is the money going to come from? I know today the market's tough, and we'll get to one of those in a couple more weeks on how we can sell even in this market while things are down. But think about your clients that have these CDs that are maturing, bonds that are maturing. A lot of times you've got, I mentioned the higher income earners. So those folks in their 40s and early 50s that have, even longer than early 50s, but that have, high income. Maybe they're, living well within their means, so they've got some excess income that they can use. Those are just some, there's many, many more. Rental income is one. Some folks have farm income, so maybe they lease part of their property out, and we've seen folks use that to pay for a 10-pay LTC contract. So there's lots and lots of options, but I think this sheet just gives you some to kind of think outside of the box. Annuities is another one on there, and we use those a lot. When you look at someone who has a large dollar amount, it's sitting in an annuity, and they haven't turned on the income. There's a statistic out there, and I don't have that on the top of my head, but it's very small. If those folks have held those annuities for 10 or 15 years and have not turned on the income stream, the chances of them turning it on is really slim. So we can do a couple things. We can reposition those into a single premium immediate annuity and use those to fund the long-term care, or they can just turn on the income stream and use it to fund a pay to 65 or a pay to 100 in those cases. So lots of different options out there in where you can find the dollars to do this. So really, that's a quick summary of CareMatters. Again, it's a cash indemnity contract. We have those separate premiums. So for those folks that want to deduct them, they can absolutely do that. We're very flexible on the premium options, the inflation options, and the control and the choice is in your client's hands. So they continue to manage the asset. And it's all about having a plan. Really, what's going to happen? What are the consequences if you don't make that plan is what we need your clients to think about. And that's all I have, Katie. If anybody has any questions, happy to open it up.
Well, I appreciate it. We have a couple questions that have come in. First one is, what happens if someone has collected for 3 years and then passes away? So if they would pass away while using claim dollars, and how do you handle that?
No, that's a great question. So we'll go back to these buckets here. And so, and in the first 2 years, if they haven't used all of this 197, a portion of that would still be death benefit, so they would be able to get it there. So since the example is 3, we've exhausted that bucket. They would then be down here to the residual death benefit. And that would be paid out to their beneficiaries.
Perfect. I have a couple more. And please, anyone else who has some questions, please feel free to type it in. We'll just kind of go down the list here and try to handle anything. And if you think of something later, just feel free to give me a holler and we can walk through it as well. But another one is, this is a life insurance with a long-term care or long-term care with life insurance?
Well, that's a great question. So the hybrid contracts are they're life insurance policies with the long-term care benefit. So they're all based on a life insurance chassis. How is this different than, say, a guaranteed universal life with long-term care? That too is a life policy with long-term care, but you're going to have higher death benefits, and you won't have the flexibility and the options for inflation that you would have on the CareMatters contract. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, I think the other thing to point out is that because it is filed as a life insurance product, as these combo products or hybrid products are sent out, the rates remain level, and I think that that's something that I think that might be what they're getting at. And if I missed that, Vicki, let me know. The next one is
I would even jump in. Sorry,
yeah,
Katie, I just wanted to kind of, maybe if that makes it a little clearer to Vicki, everything here is guaranteed, but also the kind of big difference that I kind of mentioned is these kind of products, CareMatters is kind of more of a, yes, it has a life insurance, but the life insurance is more to preserve the premium you've put into that policy. It's really a play for long-term care. It's just that death benefit is more of just in case you don't have a long-term care event, that there's something there. So you have some return of premium or you've preserved that asset. So it's more of, I think of, it's long-term care with a sprinkling of life insurance, whereas maybe like Charlie mentioned, an NLG with an LTC rider that doesn't have inflation. It's more of, hey, I still need life insurance, and long-term care is kind of a secondary thing. So if you're planning for more long-term care protection, this is where you may head or focus on versus a life insurance contract with long-term care, where that might be a little bit more of a secondary concern.
Perfect. Thank you,
That's
Alyssa.
a great point. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question is revolving around underwriting. And maybe you guys want to touch on the morbidity mortality idea.
No, that's a great question. So the underwriting for the CareMatters contract, it will be an application, and then the underwriters will run your prescription drug check, an MVR, and an MIB, and then they do a phone interview. So the phone interview, depending on the age and the details of the medical history of the client, will run 45 minutes to an hour. Occasionally they'll run over that if you have someone that has 8 different doctors. But that's the end of it. So the underwriter will then make a decision based upon the review of the prescription drugs the client's taking, the answers to the interview questions, and will determine if we can make an offer. Occasionally, based on those 2 pieces of data, we will go out and order the APS, but most often our underwriting process is we're able to do it with just the phone call. So there's never any exams or lab work done for the CareMatters contract.
It'll be done comfortably at your home, so the client does not have to interact with pyramids or anything like that.
Perfect. Who certifies the ADLs?
So that would be the physician can do that. Alyssa, we don't right now have any means to do that, right? We're just relying on the client's physician, if I remember.
Correct. It's any kind of health practitioner is going to be the one to certify it. We would give you paperwork to have that health practitioner, whether that's a doctor or a registered nurse, for example, sometimes even a social worker we may see occasionally. They're the ones that would certify that to us and come up with a plan of care for you. And that's how that claims process would get started. It isn't one of our medical team going out and certifying. So that's nice that you have the choice to go with your regular physician or whoever you're comfortable with.
Mike would like an explanation again on the qualified dollars. So can you guys run through how that works one more time?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so you have access to really any funding, and I know we skipped over some of the qualified conversation in lieu of time today, but basically, let's just say you have somebody that's heavy in their IRA, and they know they're not going to use all of that as a retirement income play. And they look at you and say, well, if I could take $100,000 out of that IRA today, so I have to be 59 and a half to begin with. And if I could take that out and reposition that into a qualified annuity, then I can take out of that qualified annuity and those premiums can funnel into the CareMatters II contract and pay that. So we do a 10 pay is typically how we see that. So somebody would go out and get qualified SPIA over a 10-year certain, and those dollars are then directed into the CareMatters by that contract. Now, obviously, there's not going to be a tax on the transfer from the IRA to the annuity, but as those 10 years of payments come out, that client will, in fact, pay taxes on those dollars.
it is a way to spread out tax. So that might be another question you might have is, why would I do that versus just not put it all in? You absolutely could just say, hey, I'm just going to take that tax hit up front. You could, but the one thing that we'd be concerned of is that going to throw that individual in a new tax bracket? If not, then maybe that's not a concern, because obviously a single premium you're going to get more leverage on versus a 10 pay. However, some individuals would say, hey, I want to spread that out because I don't want to have that tax hit or move up into a new bracket this year. So you can spread it out that way. But the point would be that, hey, that $100,000, yes, I'm getting taxed on whatever my portion is. However, I got, maybe it's in this case that the client that we're, well, this assumes she's 59 and a half, that leverage I had immediately is almost, we'll even bump it down to 500,000 from that 100,000. So it's just a different way to rework that, because she may already say, hey, that $100,000 is earmarked for long-term care purposes. I'm just going to keep it in my qualified bucket. However, look at how much leverage she has, and any of that growth that she had, she doesn't have to pay taxes on the CareMatters side of it. It's just the distribution of the SPIA and whatever she owns that way.
Perfect. No, they're still coming in, girls. So how about, is there a separate pool of money for home modification?
So because this is a cash indemnity contract, we don't have to separate a pool for that. Your benefit as you come in, once you're qualified and certified, having the ability to receive benefits, you can do whatever you want with that. So let's just say in this case, your benefit is $8,200 a month, and the actual care that you're receiving is only costing you $5,000. You have that extra $3,000 a month to do whatever you want with.
That's the power cash indemnity, where you can win that claim in that point. So I would even stretch that a little bit further to say, yeah, you have that ability to, remember, it can be informal care. So if it's a spouse taking care of you, even during that 90 days, it doesn't matter. It does not have to be skilled help unless your doctor says, hey, I think that's what's necessary on your plan of care. So if it's your spouse helping, they're obviously not going to probably take that collection of, hey, you're going to pay me $5,000 a month for this. They need to say, hey, we're just going to save it. And then in this example that Charlene has up, it's about $32,000 that I'm going to get a check written for or processed on day 91. If my spouse was taking care of me, that $32,000 could be something I can use for a home modification if I wanted to.
Okay, perfect. The next one is about funding. So can this be funded on a monthly premium? And part two to that question is, can it be used in an employer group chassis?
Great question. So yes, we do have the ability to fund this on a monthly basis, which makes it, especially when you get down to the 10 pays or even the 15, and then of course the pay to 100, makes it a very affordable option for many people. So definitely monthly options available. And then in the group chassis, I'm going to defer that over to Alyssa. We can do it. It's not there's no guaranteed issue on it. It's still an elective contract. It's still individually underwritten, but we do have some availability, I believe, Alyssa, for some list bill if we have a number of folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have the option to do a list bill. At this moment, there aren't any underwriting concessions for it, but we can certainly, depending on your situation, let Katie know, and we can talk. If you have a scenario where that makes sense, we can look at that individually, but we do have the ability to do a list bill for an employer if they were going to provide it, or if they wanted to offer it to their employees. There is that option. And then on the monthly premium, just to point out, there is no modal factor. So it's basically that annual premium divided by 12. So it doesn't cost you more to do monthly if that was the best choice for the client.
Great. Okay, another one, and this is going to kind of go back to that bucket page that we had, but please explain the 2-year, the 4-year, the 6-year. Is this a benefit? Is this how long until the benefit would kick in? Is this how long it lasts? Is this what the policy covers? And then on top of that, the second question right behind it is there a waiver of premium? So I know that's a twofold question, but if we can address those, that would be great.
Yeah. So the initial bucket is always going to be 2 years. And as I mentioned earlier, we can do benefits of 5 years. We can do benefits. The maximum that we can go is a 7-year benefit. So that 2-year bucket will always be the beginning. And then after that 2 years is exhausted, you will go to the what's called the extension of benefits. And that could be the 5 years. Again, if you were doing a 7-year, it could be a 3-year benefit there if you were doing just a 5-year payout. And that would be the total pool. So that would be completely exhausted. In this situation, we're showing $8,200 is the max benefit. Now, your clients have the option to take less than that, but typically we don't recommend that since it's cash indemnity. Let's say the care again was only $5,000, take the 8 and put it in your savings account. So typically when we're looking at whether it's a 5-year, 6-year, 7-year benefit pool, that is the full payout, and then the long-term care premiums or dollars would stop. Hopefully that clarifies that, if Alyssa wants to jump in on there. And then the waiver of premium, we do not currently have on the contract.
So I can elaborate a little bit on both of those. So the Charlene had it's perfect. So exactly. So your 2 years, it just breaks for the person that had the question, just how the policy breaks down and is designed. So if you had 7 years, it would be at 2 plus 5. It doesn't change how when your process starts, you're still getting the $8,200 a month. It's just your first 2 years, you're exhausting the death benefit portion. I kind of want to say that's kind of like your investment into your $100,000 you put into the policy. And then after that, that's when you're in the insurance company's pocket. And that's why we say take it. We don't want you to leave it in the contract because like the person who mentioned earlier, what if I pass away in year 3? Well, if you were taking a little bit just on the offset that, hey, maybe I have a longer claim, it's better for you to save it and it be out of the contract than stay here. And then you only get that residual death benefit. We do not offer a waiver of premium on majority of the options, the pay to 100, because we realize a claim will likely happen at that point. We waive the LTC premiums. So you still owe the life insurance premium version of this product because there's a life insurance premium and there's a long-term care premium that is combined overall. That portion would still be due if you were doing a pay to 100, the life insurance contract part, but we'll waive the LTC portion. And remember, because it's cash indemnity, you could use your benefits to pay that premium. In most cases, that's probably the best scenario so you can maintain your full benefits. However, you could always reduce pay up, which basically means based on what you've put in, we'll reduce that contract to make sense for that. So if you've only paid half your premiums, it's basically going to be that. If you want to reduce pay up, you're going to get half of your benefits in that scenario.
I appreciate it, ladies. I think we've handled all the questions. So I want to thank everyone. First and foremost, we know these times are difficult. We know things are changing out there. And we want you to know that we are thinking about you and your family, along with your clients and your business. So please, first and foremost, know that we are here for any questions that you may have, whether that be that sincerely from not only Premier, but these two lovely ladies and Nationwide as well. We do know things are difficult. So please know that we are here to come up. I am more than happy to set up a time to talk and send me an email, however you would like to do it. Whatever fits best with your schedule as well. We are fully aware that there are, complications out there online, and that is one other thing I'd like to bring up is that our carriers, along with Nationwide, have great e-apps. So if you would have questions on that option, that might be a great way to kind of work in our quote-unquote new normal. So please, I welcome any questions. The other thing is that Nationwide has graciously offered to provide ease to all of our attendees that attend 2 out of 3 of these webinar series. So our next webinar will be next Tuesday. You are all on the list. I have everything noted. And if you have any questions on that program, please feel free to reach out as well. So that being said, I appreciate your time, Alyssa and Charlene. And if there's any other closing statements, other than that, I think we've handled all the questions out there.
Great. No, we really appreciate you having us on, and we appreciate everybody taking the time and great questions. Thanks for the interaction, and we look forward to receiving more questions after the call.
Alrighty. Well, thank you guys all again, and I appreciate your time, your attendance, and stay healthy and well out there. Talk to you soon.